Hello and happy Friday. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. The last few videos have all been about kind of solving problems that were written to be Excel problems. This one's actually something that came up as a real life problem, but that I used an Excel spreadsheet to solve. So the idea is I'm in a sports pool based on the English Premier League. If you know even less about soccer than I do, then you might need to read up before this will make any sense to you. But if you know anything at all about it, then you can probably follow along. So basically the idea is every match week you pick a team. So let's say I picked Man City this week. Then I get whatever points they get that week. So in other words, if they win, I get 3 points. If they draw, I get 1 point, and if they lose, I get 0 points. And I also add to my goal difference. So in other words, I get +1 on my goal difference for every goal they score and -1 for every goal they concede. And then the next week I have to pick a different team, and the next week I have to pick a different team, and so on. And it goes through the season like that until you've picked every team for at least 1 week, and then you start again. You're free to choose from all 20 teams again, and then you kind of go through it again. So we're just over halfway through the season now, so we've just passed the point where everyone has picked all 20 teams the first time, and now we're getting to pick there's 18 more weeks to go in the second half of the season, so we get to pick 18 of them a second time and see how we get on. So, a typical match week like this week, you've got 10 matches, all 20 teams playing against someone. So there's always every team is available to pick in every match week. So I don't know, as I mentioned, a whole lot about soccer, but I do know plenty about Excel. So I've built a spreadsheet to make my picks for this. So just to explain quickly, the idea is, it's pretty simple to figure out, of the 20 teams playing this week. If you look at, bookies odds or someone else's odds or whatever, it's pretty easy to figure out which team is most likely to win their match this week or have the best goal difference or whatever. But there's trade-offs between the weeks. So in other words, the best team is often going to be the team most likely to win their match this week, but you can only pick them once in the first 20 weeks, and you can only pick them once in the last 18 weeks. And similarly, it's easy to say, well, what week is the best week to pick Everton? What week is the best week to pick Wolves? But again, many of those best weeks will be the same as each other, so you can't pick them all. You have to make trade-offs. So that's where the spreadsheet comes in. So the data I'm using for this, I'm getting from the 538 Premier League predictions. So they have, lots of data on, past performance and team members and yada yada yada, and which they use to come up with rankings of all the different teams, and then also predictions for individual matches. So for each match they say, whatever, Watford versus Norwich, there's a 51% chance Watford will win, 23% chance Norwich will win, and a 26% chance of a draw. And they also predict expected numbers of goals. And the nice thing is, well, two things. One is they have that data in Excel, and the second thing is, compared to trying to look at bookmakers' odds or something like that, they have these predictions for every single match all the way through the rest of the season. So it's pretty easy to work with, because you have to make those trade-offs between this week and next week and 8 weeks from now and 12 weeks from now. It's if you have all the data in the same place, it's easier to deal with that. So if you go to projects.538.com/soccer predictions/Premier League, you'll get this, or just Google those terms and you'll find it. And then down at the bottom you have an option to download this data, and it takes you to their site. They let you download all kinds of data. It's very cool. It's a bit of a big file, so I'll just pull up the one that I downloaded earlier. And here it is. You get this soccer SPI file. It's not just for the English Premier League, it's for a whole bunch of different leagues. There's a few different things in here, but so this is, global rankings is the team's rankings, and then matches is the match by match predictions. The main matches file is just a much bigger one. It has many years, but the latest has the current season. So that's the one I'm going to work with. I think I've already popped it open, so let me just flip over to that. So this is what the file looks like. So you've got what's the season, what's the date of the match, what's the league ID, what's the league name, team 1, team 2. Then SPI is basically their measure. I think it's Soccer Power Index or Soccer Performance Index or something like that. Their measure of how good the team is. So higher number is better. So in other words, here you see whatever, Shandong versus Guizhou. Shandong has the higher SPI, so they're more likely to win. So it gives you the SPI for team 1 and team 2, the probability of winning for Team 1 and Team 2 and the probability of a tie, and then the projected score for Team 1 and Team 2. And then everything after that is just stuff that they fill in after a game has been played. That's blank for games that haven't been played yet, and I'm not going to use that. I don't need that. So, like I said, this is even just with the current seasons only. This is like 12,000 rows of data, but we're going to filter, so we only want the Premier League, which is the Barclays Premier League, so that's there. And then we have 380 matches, which is exactly what we should have. So I'm going to take that data and just copy it out into a different file. So like I said, I'm going to go over as far as the projected score, and the rest of the stuff that they don't fill in for matches that haven't been played yet, I don't care about, because I'm only interested in the matches that haven't been played yet. So let me just pop open a new file and put that in. Now I should kind of caveat, if I were doing this in the real world, I would put something in here saying source and put in the data and so on. But since, as I've mentioned before, I work at a pretty small piece of the screen to make sure that it's going to be big on your video so you can read it, so I'm going to save myself some space and not do that. I am going to turn this into a table, because then it'll be easier to work with later. And then I'm just going to get rid of league ID and league name and season, because those are all not really relevant now. So I just have the date, the teams, the SPIs, the probabilities, the probability of a tie, and the projected scores. Just one quick thing to mention on the SPI is the whole idea of the SPI is that it updates as the teams play against each other. So let's just say, for example, I filter on Team 1 is Arsenal. You can see that their SPI at the start of the season, basically it goes down if they perform worse than the model expected. It goes up if they perform better than the model expected. And then once you get to, today, so this is 123 is a couple of days from now, for all the rounds after that, it just stays the same, because the matches that would update it after that haven't happened yet. Now, the one other challenge here is that we need to add in the week of the match. And I say challenge, I mean it pretty literally, because the EPL schedule has been completely scrambled this year because of COVID. So lots of matches have been postponed many weeks, or even pulled forward by a few weeks. Some of them are still waiting to be scheduled, etc., etc. So this has the matches kind of listed in the date order based on the dates they're expected to be played in, but the weeks that they fall into are based on the schedule as it was originally planned to be. So basically, if I had this for a typical EPL season, I could just say, well, the first 10 rows are week 1, and then the next 10 rows are week 2, and so on down. But because of the way it's been rearranged, and because that's not reflected in this data, I don't have that. So I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of sort of data cleanup from another place. If that part is not exciting to you, because this is kind of a one-off because of the season and whatever, just go down to the little time scroller at the bottom and skip on to the next chapter, and you can ignore this part. But if you want to see that, so let me come back over here. I just Googled EPL 2021-22 schedule Excel, and sure enough, there's lots of different places, Excel for soccer and Office templates and so on. So I just grabbed one of those and checked that it had what I need, which it does. So I'm going to go back to my downloads. Actually, sorry, I think I've already opened it up. So this is the one I got from, I think, Excel for soccer, and it has a list of fixtures, and you'll see it's got the match day for each one. And so if I scroll down to some of the ones that have been scrambled, so like here, this was supposed to be a match week of December 28th to 30th. There's several that are still TBC, but they've left them grouped together as week 20. And similarly, if I zip down a little closer to today, here's like one of the matches of week 24 got pulled forward to January 18th. The rest of them aren't happening until early February, but they're still grouped together as week 24. So that's and there are a couple of, well, there are a bunch of other spreadsheets that either have the original date lists or have them grouped together like this, and from that you can get what you need. So basically, in order to get from this file into this file, we're going to need a lookup, which is going to be the two teams playing. And one thing you can quickly check just by copy, value, paste, and then Alt-AM to remove duplicates. You can check that there are no duplicates here, because the 380 games are each of the 20 teams play against each of the other 19 teams twice each, and they play once as the home team versus the other as the away team, and then once the other way around. So in other words, the order team 1, team 2 is always unique. But obviously the names of the teams may differ a little bit between the files because there's slightly different naming conventions. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this list of teams, take the unique values, sort them, and then I'm going to do the same thing from the other file, take this list of teams, take the unique values, and sort them. Alt-AM to get unique values, Alt-ASA to sort ascending, and then what you'll see is, you've only got a list of 20 or so, so we don't need to do any kind of super advanced fuzzy matching. If we just do a direct check, we'll see most of them are exact matches, and then we just need to sort of eyeball the rest and make sure. So, Brighton and Hove Albion is Brighton, Leeds United is Leeds United, Leicester City, Leicester. So you can quickly check down, and the answer is all of those match. So now I've got basically a little lookup table here. So I'm just going to add in a couple more columns here. I'm going to say T1 alt name, T2 alt name, and then week. So my T1 alt is just going to be VLOOKUP. Keep using VLOOKUP every now and again because I like to stick it to the haters. Take column 2 and then copy that across, but change team 1 to team 2. And so then I've got Brentford, Arsenal matches, but now my Leeds United has turned into abbreviated Leeds United. And now that I have that, I can just do a SUMIFs to pull in the week. So I'm going to say SUMIF the match day where the home team is T1 alt. And sorry, I'm going to expand this formula bar so you can actually see what's happening and move this out of the way. And then where the away team is T2 alt name. Oh, sorry, yep. So I referenced the whole column, but I should, of course, be referencing just the current row. So I'll put in an @ Is that how I do it? Oh, I don't even know. Just do that. Oh yeah. So another set of square brackets and an @ Okay. So now just a couple of quick sense checks. One, that they're all between 1 and 38. They are. Second one is that I should have the sum of them should be there should be 10 matches for each week. So they should sum up to 7,410, which is 10 times the sum of these. So sum of the first 38 numbers that I just did there is 741, and the sum of these will hopefully be 7,410, and it is. So now I can kind of feel pretty good about that. And if I just shrink up this formula bar, if you scan down, you'll see, all of weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before all the schedule changes are all grouped together, and then you can find some of the schedule anomalies. So, here's a chunk of week 18 that got pushed back, and then there's one week 24 game that got pulled forward that we looked at earlier. So that's all checking out. So I think we've got a working week column now. So now I'm just going to close down these other files that I'm not using anymore. I don't need that one because I copied the data over. I'll get rid of these alt name columns because I don't need them. I'll just keep the week. Okay, so now we've done the data cleanup. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the expected points. So T1 x points and T2 x points. And it's a simple thing to do from these probabilities. So, this is the probability that team 1 will win, and if they win, they get 3 points, plus the probability that there's a tie. So they get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, 0 points for losing. So you just multiply those by the probabilities, and then I'm also going to add in, because as I mentioned, the kind of main thing that the pool is sorted on is the number of points you get, and then the tiebreaker is the goal difference. So I'm going to add in the expected number of goals that they will score minus the expected number of goals they'll concede divided by 100, just to be the sort of tiebreaker. And then I'll copy that over and just change prob 1 to prob 2, proj score 1 to proj score 2, and proj score 2 to proj score 1. And so now I have my expected number of points, including the tiebreaker for each team, for each game, for each week, etc., etc. So having done all that, let's now kind of start to turn that into, so again, I'll just take my unique list of teams. I could obviously pull this out with the unique formula, but as you'll see, I'm going to kind of poke and change and do things with this in a minute that wouldn't work so well if it was live. So a couple of things I need to adjust for then. First one is obviously it's it's late January now, so week 21 and week 22 have already gone by. So I didn't get around to actually updating my spreadsheet for the second half of the season until now. So I've manually picked Liverpool and Man United for the first two games. So I'm just going to remove them. And then I've got 18 teams left. I need to pick 16 of them for matches in the rest of the season. So again, because there's 20 teams, there's 38 match weeks, you can get away with not picking two teams. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to look up their current SPI and remove the two lowest ranked teams. And here, despite all I keep saying about VLOOKUP, I am going to use a nice XLOOKUP, because one of the nice things about XLOOKUP is it lets you look up the last match. So like I explained, the SPI changes over the course of the season, but the ones that are toward the end, like anything that's after today, let me just pull that back up again quickly, anything that's after today will be all the same, because the matches that would change that haven't happened yet. So in other words, Arsenal's current SPI is 81.77. So that's what I want to look up. I want to look up, and the way I'm going to do that is just say, find the last match for Arsenal and give me the SPI for that. And that's what you can do with an XLOOKUP. So I'm going to say XLOOKUP this, and then I haven't named this table yet. I'm going to do that quickly. I'll just call it matches. Now I'm going to say XLOOKUP this in matches. So the thing I'm looking up is the team 1, and then the return array is matches SPI1, so the SPI for team 1, and then I'll just move this over into where you can see it. So if not found, I can leave blank. Match mode, I can leave blank. But this one, the search mode, I'm going to go search last to first, which is -1. And so as you can see, that gives me 81.77, which is just what I was expecting for Arsenal, and then I copy that down to the rest. So then I can just sort descending, and probably not surprising to any soccer fans out there, Newcastle and Norwich City are the two that get ditched. So now, finally, I'm going to come up with my week, my team pick, and my expected points. And then this is the piece that I'm going to have to optimize. So the week is going to be, there are 16 weeks, and the current week is 23, so that'll be from 23 to 38. And then the team, I'm going to put a team number here. That's going to be my input. And for now, I'll just make that, I'll put it up here. For now, I'll just put them in order, but this is going to be basically an ordering of the numbers from 1 to 16. And then, to make my different options for the predictions, I'll rearrange those. So that's the team, and then the expected points is going to be sum. So I'm going to say if so if the week is equal to matches week times the team is equal to matches, and this time I'm going to include two columns, team 1 and team 2. Because remember that every team appears sometimes in column 1, sometimes in column 2. So if that, and again, if it wasn't an array formula, I could do an AND around these, so AND this and this. But because I wanted to do row by row combination, if I multiply them, it forces it to, it treats a true as a 1 and a 0 as a false. So if either of them is false, meaning 0, then the product will be 0, and if they're both true, then it's 1 times 1 is 1. So that's basically a way of combining only row by row, because if I put an AND around it, it'll take all the columns of matches and do one big AND around that, so that won't behave the way I want it to. And then if that's a match, then I want to return from expected points. That is that. Then I copy that down, and then I'm just looking to maximize my expected points for the rest of the season by rearranging my list of teams. And so now this is where the Excel magic comes in, because there are 21 billion or so different permutations of the first 16 numbers. So you can think about lots of different, algorithms for trying to do this. Like you could think about the best pick for week 1, and then the best pick among what's left for week 2, and the best pick among what's left for week 3, and so on. But if you do that, you'll find that by the time you get to the later weeks, you've got very, 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 very bad choices left. And there are lots of other, ways you can think about searching, but if you're not a professional computer scientist, then one of the easier ways is to just go solver, and we're going to say set objective is this cell here. Yes, we want to make it the maximum it can be by changing these variables, and subject to the constraint that these variables are diff. And if you're not used to using solver, diff, this all different, means not just that they all have to be different from each other, but that they all have to be different numbers between 1 and the number of numbers. So in other words, in this case there's 16. They have to be different numbers between 1 and 16. So I've seen people using solver, and I've done it myself before, saying all different and then adding in 3 more conditions to say, and they have to be integers, and they have to be greater than or equal to 1, and they have to be less than or equal to 16. Actually, that's all redundant. That's all built into the all different. And then I'm going to set it to evolutionary. Not an expert in solver, but I think that one works pretty well. And I've tried this out a couple of other times when I've been when I've done previous iterations of what I'm doing right now, and it's fairly consistently ended up at the same result no matter what I started with, which gives me a reasonable degree of comfort that it is sort of getting to the right result. So let me see, I don't know if you can see the bottom of my screen here. Let me zip it up a little to make sure you can. Never mind, it's not letting, not letting me shrink it right now. Wrong one. Anyway, so down on my status bar, which I think you might not be able to see, it's spinning away, doing lots of different trials, and seeing what it can come up with. Now, like I said, it'll take a minute or so to do this, but when you think about the size of the space it's searching, that's actually pretty darn good. And it looks like so far it's got up to almost 31.5 points, which is I think the same result as it gave me before, 31.5, which if you think about it, when I've already taken out Man United and Liverpool, who are 2 of the good teams, that we can pick the teams, so we have to pick lots of teams from the bottom half, that we can pick the teams in such a way, there it is, it's all done, that we end up with an average of almost 2 points per match. That's actually pretty good. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding, so I'm going to take these predictions and put them in my pool, and probably lose because there's a lot of luck involved, even if you make good picks. But well, at least now with almost no prior knowledge of soccer, and definitely no. Whatever I do know is like 20 years old. At least now I've got a reasonable fighting chance to compete with others. Funnily enough, the guy who's currently winning our league has told me that he watches my videos. So I guess, hi Raf, I've given away my strategy now, but whatever you're doing seems to be working better anyway. So I guess that's not a big problem. All right, that's all I've got for today. Happy Friday, and I'll see you next time.